What's up, everyone? Tyler DeLuca here, and the Sweet 16 is on deck in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Here are some things that I am looking forward to in these games. First up for me is Iowa versus Colorado, a rematch from last year's NCAA tournament. This game is a very interesting one to me, not even necessarily for the matchup between the teams. Yes, we get the rematch and everything, but we're seeing Caitlin Clark versus Jalen Sherrod, and this is what real hoops are made of, y'all. I don't know how else to describe it besides that. You're getting an offensive purist in Caitlin Clark versus a defensive hawk in Jalen Sherrod. And I put a tweet out over during Colorado's last game against Kansas State where Jalen Sherrod is going to give you 100%. She's going to find 20% more just to surprise you. And then she's going to give you 5% more for the love of the game. And that's exactly what Jalen Sherrod is all about. The only person that comes to mind in the way that she just consistently plays hard throughout the entire game, every game, is like a Russell Westbrook. The only player I've seen quite like it in the way that Jalen Sherrod plays the game of basketball. And obviously, and I think something that maybe underrated, about Caitlin Clark is her movement. She moves without the ball a lot whenever it's not in her hands. She's moving constantly. Jalen Sherrod can keep up with that. And I promise you, as someone that's been able to interview Jalen, this is she's going into this locked in. There's no doubt about that with Jalen Sherrod, and so I'm very, very excited for both these, like both the team matchup in this, but also the individual game between Jalen and Caitlin. These are two of the best guards in the country, two of the best at what they do in the game of basketball. So this one's going to be fun. And I think the team matchup as a whole is interesting because I think it kind of can get down to the pace of things. Colorado's going to kind of want to muck it up and slow it down a little bit, while Iowa's obviously very, very comfortable playing very, very fast. And I think both teams can kind of do a little bit of both. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be very, very fun. And that matchup between Caitlin and Jalen, I'm going to be watching the entire time. As a point guard at heart, this is what real hoops are made of. This is a dream come true matchup for me. Just as a fan of basketball, this is what real hoops are made of. I'm going to be watching this one very, very closely to see how these two battle up against each other. Speaking of some real hoops, let's talk about the other matchup that is in the same region as Colorado and Iowa. The winner of that game will face the winner of LSU and UCLA. This is the national championship caliber matchup that we're seeing in the Sweet 16 here. I mean, so much talent across the board for both of these teams. And trying to kind of pinpoint where the advantages are for each team is hard. It's very difficult. These are two just so talented teams. Arguably, I think South Carolina's up there, obviously. And then when it comes to just all-around talent, especially in that starting lineup, they might not have the depth. LSU and UCLA don't have UCLA has solid depth. LSU doesn't have a ton of it. But man, when you just think about the pure talent in the starting fives, ridiculous. And for this one, I kind of feel like it's who's going to be, I don't want to say breakout player, because these are all players that are accomplished, but who's going to be the one to dominate. In the sense of, I'm looking at Flau'jae Johnson, who's been incredible in postseason play. I'm looking at Anissa Morrow. I'm looking at Kiki Rice, who turned it up in the second half of that game against Creighton, where it got a little shaky for UCLA there for a little bit. I'm looking at those type of players to step up in this one. And the one player that from round to round you're going to need more from is Charisma Osborne. Didn't have the best game, by far not her best game, that game against Creighton. They can't get away with that against LSU. I don't think that they can. So I'm looking at the veteran point guard in her last run with this UCLA team trying to make a deep run into the March Madness tournament. I'm looking at Charisma Osborne. And especially when you look at the other side with LSU and Michaela Williams, obviously a freshman. I mean, they have experience, but Charisma Osborne has been the keep the tide steady for UCLA throughout this season. And I think, honestly, that was part of why that game against Creighton was close, because she wasn't having her best game. Like, it kind of just feels that simple, where they weren't able to kind of keep that stability across the course of the game because Charisma Osborne wasn't there to do it. So I'm looking at her to step up, have a better game against LSU. But man, this feels, like I said, this is a national championship caliber matchup that we're seeing here, that we're getting in the Sweet 16. And then the winner goes to face the winner of Colorado, Iowa. Like, that is ridiculous that these are the matchups that we're getting so the rest of the way in this tournament, it's banger after banger after banger. And this has a chance to genuinely be the best matchup in the entire tournament if everyone lives up to the hype, if everyone plays the way they know they can. There are some stars, from Lauren Betts to Angel Reese to Kiki Rice to Anissa Morrow, stars in this matchup. It's hard to pick. I have LSU on my bracket going past UCLA, but man, this is difficult. It really is, and I'm just kind of waiting to see who's going to be the standout star. I really think it's going to come down to that, and who might be the player that is maybe the second or third option that steps up and takes it to the next level in this game. I think whoever on the team can do that team's going to win this game. I have LSU. It's tight, though. It's very, very tight. Regardless, I will be seated. I will be there no matter what. Last but not least, I want to talk about a certain player in particular, because some of the best parts about March Madness across the men's and the women's is the players that might step up out of nowhere. Maybe a name you don't recognize, and then they come in the tournament and they start making a run. And they start having one of those tournaments where they make a name for themselves. And a player that, because it hasn't really happened in this tournament, especially in the sense of there hasn't been many upsets. But the biggest upset, you have Middle Tennessee in Louisville, but the biggest upset in my eyes was Duke over Ohio State. And the reason for that, amongst others, but when you think about one player, Reagan Richardson, averaged about 11 points in the regular season, has now had back-to-back 25-plus point games. And she's been a bucket. The skill set has been there. The production has not been to this level. But as soon as she stepped on the floor in March Madness, it's just upped. It has upped the game of Reagan Richardson and this Duke team as a whole. Now, you go against Yukon. And obviously, with the way that Paige Beckers is playing right now, I mean, the talent, even though they're shorthanded, Yukon is still an incredibly talented team. And especially when you have Paige playing the way that she is, the ceiling raises very high for this Yukon team when you have a player playing like Paige is right now. But Reagan Richardson, if you haven't been able to watch her in this tournament run so far, make sure you do it. She's the skill set has been there. The production hasn't been this high before, but the production right now is absolutely insane. She's doing it efficiently. She's winning games for this Duke team, and now they're in the Sweet 16, the lowest seed across the board left as a 7 seed for this Duke team. And Reagan Richardson has been the reason. She's been incredible. The scoring has been amazing, going bar for bar with Cody McMahon and upsetting Ohio State. And now you find yourselves in the Sweet 16 against Yukon. When you think about building a name, building a legacy, making yourself a legend on campus, these are the types of games that you make it happen in. And so far, she's been doing it. I'm interested to see if she can keep it up. So something to kind of keep an eye on in this Sweet 16 run. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for me and my things to watch for in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Women's March Madness Tournament. Let me know what you have your eye on, and I'll see you next time.